Okay, imagine this. You've got this legendary figure, right? A real giant in their sport. They decide to make this huge comeback after years away. Everyone's watching.
Yeah, the anticipation is massive.
Exactly. But then you notice something odd, like really odd. The equipment they're using, it's basically ancient history.
Oh, okay. I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So today, we're doing a deep dive into exactly that kind of moment. We're talking about Bjorn Borg's attempt to return to pro tennis back in the early 90s, years after his, iconic retirement.
And it's fascinating because it wasn't just about him being rusty, was it? It was so much about the technology, how the game itself had changed.
Totally. And we're digging into this using a really interesting Reddit thread as our source. Lots of fans, experts, people sharing memories and debating this whole episode.
So our mission really is to unpack all those details of Borg's try, figure out why it went down the way it did, and maybe think a bit broader about, how we even compare athletes from different times.
That's a great story.
It really is. It says a lot.
So first off, let's just set the stage. Bjorn Borg. I mean, for anyone maybe newer to tennis history, the guy was just...
dominant.
Oh, completely. An absolute phenomenon.
He walks away in 1982, super young, only 26. But before that, just crushed it. 11 Grand Slams.
6 French Opens.
Mm-hmm.
And that run of 5 Wimbledons in a row. Just incredible. Cool demeanor, amazing fitness, those ground strokes.
He was tennis for a while there. So fast forward nearly 10 years, 1991. He decides to come back, steps onto the court at Monte-Carlo.
Right, back into the Pro Tour. But the tennis world wasn't quite the same when he left. It had shifted. Subtly in some ways, but profoundly in others.
And here's the killer detail, the thing that just immediately made everyone's jaw drop. He played with a wooden racket.
Yeah, wood. I mean, by 91, the tour had moved on years before. Everyone was using graphite.
It's almost hard to picture now, isn't it?
It really is. And the results, well, they reflected that choice pretty starkly.
Brutally, yeah. He didn't win a single set. Not one. In his first 9 matches across 91 and 92. Oof, that's rough. Just tough to watch for such a legend. I remember reading he lost 6-4, 7-6 to another Swede in Washington in 92. Just couldn't get over the line.
And Borg himself, there's that famous quote from him about the racket, right? He said something like, I knew if I wanted to do well, I had to use another racket.
And I thought, why change? Yeah, though.
Which is just baffling, isn't it, for him?
Yeah.
The ultimate competitor. Why change?
It really is hard to square. And that quote, that whole decision, it got a lot of reaction in the source material we looked up. People called it foolhardy.
Out of touch, yeah. Exercise in folly.
Exactly. And there was also, some speculation kicking around. Maybe financial problems were pushing him to come back, and maybe that influenced how he did it, just sticking to what he knew.
It's possible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But the racket choice itself, it wasn't just some random quirk. It pointed to this huge shift that had happened in tennis.
The technological revolution, yeah.
What?
Graphite versus wood. It changed everything.
To give you some context, the last majors won with wood were what? Everett and Noah at the French Open in '83.
That's right, 1983. So that was a full 8 years before Borg tried coming back with his wooden Donné. The game had completely moved on.
So what did graphite actually do differently?
Well, 2 main things. Power and spin, especially spin. The larger, stiffer graphite frames let players hit the ball much harder, sure, but crucially, they could generate way more topspin.
Right, so the ball kicks up much higher and faster off the bounce.
Exactly. Insane amounts of topspin compared to wood. Imagine like a tour player today with a wooden racket trying to return Rafa Nadal's forehand on clay.
Yeah, forget about it. The ball would be bouncing over their head.
Pretty much. It made the old style of play, the flatter hitting, much harder to execute against the new power and spin.
And we saw other players struggle with this transition, didn't we? Like Chris Evert?
Yeah, Chrissy was famously a bit late switching from wood in the early 80s, and you could see it affect her results for a period. She adapted, of course. She's a legend.
But contrast that with Martina Navratilova.
Right. Martina embraced graphite and arguably hit her absolute peak after making the switch. It suited her aggressive serve and volley game perfectly.
It shows how equipment isn't just incidental, it shapes how the game is even played.
Totally. It's like, remember later when Federer stuck with that slightly smaller racket head for a while, even as courts slowed down?
Yeah, the 90 square inch one.
Right. People debated it endlessly. Did it give him more precision? Maybe. But ultimately, against guys maximizing power with bigger frames, it probably wasn't an advantage overall. Technology and style, they're locked together.
Okay, so the racket was obviously a huge, huge problem for Borg. But the sources mentioned it wasn't just the racket.
No, definitely not. Another big factor seems to have been his training, or perhaps lack of it, for the modern game. The physicality, the intensity had ramped up.
Right, it wasn't the 70s anymore.
Not at all. And this feeds into a broader point you see discussed a lot, the crazy level difference between eras.
Yeah, how much deeper the talent pool is now.
Exactly. You take someone who was maybe, say, top 10 or top 20 in a previous era, even guys like Thomas Muster or Philippoussis who still look great in Legends events.
Right, they can still crush the ball.
They can, but would they seriously challenge guys ranked like 250 or 300 in the world today in a real tournament? Probably not. The baseline level is just so much higher across the board.
And Muster himself tried a comeback, didn't he? Much later.
He did in 2010 at 43, and he was tough going. Lost almost every match.
Though he did get that one win, I remember reading about that.
Okay.
Against, who was it? Leonardo Mayer? The guy with the quirky serve?
That sounds right, yeah. But generally, it was a struggle. He even lost to a young Dominic Thiem in 2011, which, people saw as a symbolic moment for Austrian tennis.
So it really highlights that gap.
It does, and you see hints of it even in those Legends matches or exhibitions. You mentioned Philippoussis looking good.
Yeah, Roddick, too. Andy Roddick, some people said, looked like he could still hop into a challenger and win it.
Right. Still has that firepower. But then you might see someone else, like James Blake was mentioned in the thread.
Yeah. Great player in his day.
Absolutely. But in recent exhibitions, maybe looked like the movement wasn't quite there anymore compared to the others. The physical toll and the evolution of movement is just relentless.
Which brings up that bigger question from the sources. Is it even useful trying to compare players across these huge time gaps?
It's really tough. One comment called it futile because of the massive changes from modern sports science, technology, medicine, training, everything.
The whole ecosystem is different.
Completely. But
Right.
There's always the counter argument, isn't there? The sort of adaptation hypothesis.
You mean the idea that a true champion like a Borg or a Laver or whoever, if you drop them into a different era?
They'd figure it out. They'd adapt their training, their technique, their equipment, and because they have that innate champion's mentality and talent, they'd still rise to the top or near it, assuming, basic physical compatibility.
It's a compelling idea.
Yeah.
So does Borg's story support that or challenge it? He didn't really succeed in adapting, at least not initially.
Well, that's the interesting part. He didn't have success in 91, 92 with the wood, but then later in 93, apparently he did switch to a modern racket.
Ah, okay.
And the reports say he actually started playing better, winning some sets, pushing some good players, still not winning tournaments, but showing clear improvement.
So maybe some signs of adaptation were there. Just maybe too late, or the gap was too big by then?
Could be. It definitely adds a layer to that adaptation debate. It's not just about talent, but also timing and circumstance.
And it wasn't just the rackets evolving. The courts themselves were changing too, right? There's this idea that surfaces have homogenized, become more similar.
Yeah, you hear that a lot. But many argue, and our sources pointed this out, that it was the racket technology driving those changes, almost forcing the courts to adapt.
How so?
Well, think about Wimbledon. So traditional, yet even they literally changed the type of grass used on the courts over the years.
Really? Different grass?
Yep. And little things, too, like opening the cans of balls weeks before the tournament starts, apparently to make them fluff up a bit, maybe slow them down slightly.
Wow. Subtle stuff.
And remember that graphic they showed during the tournament about average ball bounce height?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. It's gone up, hasn't it?
By several feet, according to the graphic, comparing now to the 80s, 90s. That's huge. And it's linked to the grass type reacting differently to the massive spin players generate now with modern rackets.
So the argument is the courts had to change because the rackets allowed players to hit with so much more power and spin.
That's the core idea. The tech drove the evolution of the playing environment itself.
Which makes you wonder, Borg's backhand, that iconic two-hander, almost like a slap shot.
Yeah, quite flat, compact, very unique.
Could that shot, even with a modern racket, consistently handle the sheer pace and heavy, high-bouncing spin that guys like Nadal generate today, driving through the ball with both hands?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? It would be a very different challenge than what he faced in his prime. The physics of the exchanges are just different now.
So when we wrap all this up, what's the big takeaway from Borg's attempted comeback? It's more than just use the right gear.
Oh, much more. I think it's a really powerful illustration of how disruptive technological shifts can be, even for the absolute best, and maybe how past success can sometimes blind you a little.
Yeah, like that why change mentality. It shows you can't just rely on what worked before when the whole game around you transforms.
Exactly. It's not just about one piece of tech. It's the whole interconnected system, the rackets, the training, the physicality, even the court surfaces. Success requires adapting to that whole evolving ecosystem.
Old strengths can become outdated really fast.
They really can. It really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? In sports, or maybe anything really, where tech and training just keep accelerating. How do we even compare greatness across generations?
Right. What does timeless skill even mean when the context, the very tools and playing field, change so fundamentally?
It's a tricky one, something to definitely ponder.